Do you see yourself as an entrepreneur?
Yes. I can't take that pride away. Like, I need you to continue to be proud of me.
Because I done told you I'm not ready yet.
Plain and simple, yeah. Sometimes misery loves company though.
So for all of the budding influencers out there, right? For you to be able to gain a deal as big as yours,
Yeah.
what pressure did that have on your mentor?
If there are things that you have to keep and hide from your partner, you know it's a problem. The public opinion, worst thing I probably ever did. And your response is because you're going to get upset, well then you know I'm going to be upset.
Thank you in advance for listening because it means that my confidence grows. Thank you for subscribing because it means that I get to share more. And thank you for commenting because it means that I get to listen to you. And thank you in advance for sharing because that's confirmation that we inspired you to inspire others. I pray that you enjoyed this episode as much as we enjoyed creating it.
This is the Promisingpreneur podcast. I am Aahliyah Amerat, and right now I'm joined with Jourdan Riane. Everything extraordinaire, beauty queen.
Not beauty queen.
Yeah, beauty queen, model, influencer, actor, and all the rest of it. And I'm gonna let her introduce herself real quick. I want you to tell me, Jourdan, nice to see you, by the way.
Hi.
I want you to tell me who you are, what you do, and to be honest with you, I don't really want to talk about Love Island because it's...
Oh, well, thank God. Okay, good.
Yeah, no, it's not it.
That we just...
It's not it.
That was like a little
That was just a
moment.
blip.
That was a blip.
Yeah.
That was a blip.
You're so much more than that, right? So I want to know who Jourdan Riane is.
Oh my God. You know when someone asks you this question and then all of a sudden you've got this like overload of sheer panic and you don't know what to say?
I heard that.
I don't know. I've been doing modelling and acting since I was, young. So I started off by doing musical theatre and did like West End and did Wicked and performed at the Royal Albert Hall and stuff when I was a lot younger. Grew up still doing it, and then in the acting side of things, I think the most recent thing I did was, it's been, because of the pandemic, it's been 2 years now. I did a Sky Kids TV show, which was so much fun.
Yes.
And nice to have done the He Who Shall Not Be Named TV show, and done something that I actually have loved for forever and a day. And then on the modelling side of things, I started doing that when I was really young as well. Started that when I was literally a child. I think if I'm correct, I was about 7 or 8. Nice. And I did a dance class. I was scouted in my dance class to then model for a kids magazine, and then did a kids magazine. Studied, did what I needed to. I was in primary school as a baby. And then at the age of 15, did a random photo shoot for a friend of mine who was doing a startup modelling agency. Did a shoot that got picked up by a different photographer. Done a shoot with that photographer, and then that picture ended up in Vogue Italia. And then my modelling just like went from there. And then I did things for like Elle magazine and Black Hair and Beauty and Superdrug and Boots and Maybelline, L'Oreal, and mainly beauty because I'm a mere 5'4". I'm quite small.
You said a mere 5'4".
I'm like 5'4". It's okay, it's like awesomeness in a little bottle.
So you don't really qualify for the high fashion?
Don't really do high fashion
Okay.
catwalks, no.
Right,
no.
okay.
But anything beauty and from the waist up.
Yeah.
And adverts and TV adverts and fashion adverts I did like Boohoo, which worked because they don't really care about your height in the advert side of things. But yeah, anything catwalk related, can't do.
Was that a dream of yours? Did you want to do catwalk?
I didn't until I was told I couldn't, and now I feel like I really want to do it. But
the phenomenon.
know. Yeah, I feel like now that I was told like you're actually too short, I'm like, well, we'll see. But it's not like
I'm going to prove you wrong. I'm going to do
prove
it.
you wrong. I will be the shortest model ever. But no, I'm not overly fussed to do it. I'm not like, oh my God, it's my dream. Modelling in general growing up was always my dream, and alongside the acting. But in terms of the catwalk, no, I'm not that fussed, to be fair. But one day, it'll happen one day. It'll be nice.
Oh, yeah.
It'll be nice.
So, okay, cool. So I want to ask you this question. I'm going to go right off the bat, right? This whole podcast is about promisingpreneurs.
Yeah.
Do you see yourself as an entrepreneur?
Yes. Can you imagine if I said no? Not really, I might as well just leave right now. Just because I feel like my mentality and everything about who I am as a person and how I am as a person is about finding either niche sections of any category within the modeling side, within the social media side, and making a business out of it and finding new avenues to create a space for not only me to make a profit from, but other people. And I'm very much about learning myself and teaching anything else that I can. So I just feel like within myself, how I was raised, the people around me, it's very much a mentality of how can we make this a business? How can we learn? How can we grow? How can we teach others? Even if it's the smallest thing.
Right.
So
okay.
I think that counts.
Yeah, 100%.
That counts.
100% it counts, definitely. So you see yourself as an entrepreneur. A lot of people wouldn't see that from you, but they would see an influencer.
Yeah.
Does that annoy you?
Oh, a lot. There's a part of me that quote unquote understands because people in general, unfortunately, will take things for face value, which is what the whole point of, or part and parcel of being an entrepreneur is about breaking that wall and being like, okay, great, but there's also so much more. But yeah, it becomes annoying when you're like, oh, I do videos to do with like girl talk, and I do actually do stuff that provide even the smallest amount of education of anything, that it gets skipped over because people can't see past either the show or, oh yeah, but just pictures on Instagram, or, oh yeah, you done this one thing, like they can't see past it, which is frustrating, but it's a shame really.
No, it is definitely a shame because, I mean, I know you personally and I know how much is in you, which is why I kind of wanted you to come onto the show and talk to us about who you are as an entrepreneur, setting aside all of the things that everybody sees
online.
Like just forget it. It's all that to be fair with you, answer me this. Going on to a show like Love Island, because I remember that
oh
time,
God, yep.
right? That time when you got asked, because if I'm right, you got asked a few times.
For years, years prior.
And you turned it down.
Yeah.
Why?
I didn't feel like it aligned with where I was at in my life, what I wanted to do. I was like, oh God, I don't think I can do it. So I said no for the times prior when I was like, no, this isn't for me. No, not right now.
So then when they asked you, why did you say yes?
Because I felt like I'd been asked so many times, is this actually something I'm supposed to do? So when I actually said yes, and you never know until you're literally asked to do it, you can even be in Spain and be in isolation that you have before and they can still tell you to go back home. Like, you truly are never guaranteed to do it until you're there. My headspace was, I've been asked, this is the third year they're asking me, I'm going to go with the process. If I do it, I do it. If I don't, I don't. It was never like, oh my God, I have to do it. If I don't go on, I'm going to be upset. It was, if they say no, they say no. And truth be known, because I only did Casa Amor, which is halfway through it, I still wasn't even 100% sure if I was going to do it anyway. Because I was like, well, we're 4 weeks in. You're not going to need me now. We're winding down the show. Yeah. It's not like it's at the peak. So yeah, my headspace was very much, maybe this is something I'm meant to do. Like, maybe it's what's supposed to happen in my life. They've asked me enough. Let me just see what happens. And yeah, I ended up doing it.
Yeah. And do you feel like doing it was beneficial to you?
In certain aspects, yes. I feel like for me personally, it was very much a straight down the middle, really good, really bad. From the perspective of social media, brilliant. It opens doors. I think a common misconception that people have is that it gives you all the money and the work, and it doesn't. You still have to work. It just allows you to be spoken about with brands that you couldn't have been spoken about before. But the work side of things is very much all you regardless. You can't just sit back and it just happens for you. So in terms of what it brought forward, absolutely helped me massively. In terms of obviously more sensitive subjects like the mental health side of things or the public opinion, worst thing I probably ever did.
Yeah.
So it was very give and take.
Yeah, well, yeah, of course, I can get that.
Yeah.
I think you being able to go onto the show, I personally would see it as more of a strategic business move, because for you didn't care about going onto it, whether you went onto it or not. It wasn't a thing. So you doing it, did you know that you could potentially gain like traction after it? And did you know that you'll be able to kind of leverage off of the name that it's given you?
So that the first part, yes. The second part, no. So before you go on, they don't know how they do it now, but when I did it, they make you speak to like a psych for hours on end, and the psych really tells you all the bad, so that you really understand that actually you might think you're going to go on and get loads of traction and make a name for yourself, but your name could be so tarnished that it's actually a detriment to you. It's never going to benefit you. And they really make it known that it's a very much a risk. Because you have zero control over editing, you can go in there and be the best version of yourself and it never get aired. They could edit you to look like the worst version of yourself. So I knew that it would do something. I just genuinely was never sure what that something would be. So it was very much my genuine reasoning was, I really want to just experience this. Like, I really want to see what it's like. If it helps, brilliant. I really never took on board the whole, it could really, really, really tarnish your name. I was like, oh my God, no. If you think about that, it's just going to be too much negativity. Don't put that thought and give it enough power. But I hoped it would be good, but I didn't go in there with the mentality of this will be amazing for me, because it might not have.
Yeah.
But I went in there with the mentality of this is going to be an experience that regardless, I am so glad I got to do.
Do you know what? That mentality there, personally, I try to have that mentality for everything and anything, right? Because it's so difficult when you put yourself forward for an opportunity and you don't know whether it's going to be good or bad, but then at the end of it, you're kind of like, you could turn around and be like, oh, that was a total waste of time, and be so down and depressed and down and out about doing it. Like, when you're in a relationship, if you're in a relationship and the relationship breaks down, most people will be like, oh, that was a waste of my time.
Yeah.
Like, oh, it's so annoying.
It's true.
He's this, he's that, she's this, she's that. But for me personally, I've always gone into certain things like, what's the worst that can happen? If I'm mega dead?
Mega dead anyway.
If I'm gonna dead, then fine, I'm not gonna do it. But most things, I'm not gonna dead, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm only gonna learn from the opportunity. I'm only gonna gain an opportunity or not gain an opportunity. The opportunity that I do regardless gain, whether good or bad, I'm always gonna be learning through that process. I'm always gonna learn something about myself.
Yeah.
But there's a caveat to that.
Go on.
If you reflect.
Yeah, true.
Right.
And that's a massive, massive part, is you actually taking a step back and being like, what did I learn from it?
Right. Did you do that when you came out?
I still do that now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do. I'm doing it now more because it's on again, and I'm like, oh my God, when I done it. I think when I came off, the 6 months following were the most turbulent months of my entire existence of life. Like, some good, but the majority really, really down for me. So I had almost no choice but to reflect, because I was like, okay, why am I in this place? And the only way I was able to get out was by reflecting. And in the years following, so the last 2 years now, I've been able to be like, okay, this was what this was like. Maybe if I'd done that differently, I would have done that coming out of it. Maybe if I'd done this, can I imagine what this was like? And I was like, okay, so what did that teach me about interaction with people like this? What did that teach me about relationships that are like this? What about the public? How do I handle the public now? Like, it taught me everything.
What was your key takeaway that you can say up until today, you're like, I'm going to hold that lesson for the rest of my life and teach my kids?
That there is nothing in this world that you can be prepared for, but regardless, in every situation, before you react, you need to take a step back and think about what your reaction is going to cause later on. So using that off the back of the show, my reactions to maybe some people that had things to say publicly was to say things back. And in turn, I'm like, there's just no, like, what is the point? Like, me saying that caused that to end up on gossip pages, which then caused it to look like I was arguing, which then caused it to look negative on me. All of that to talk to people that are just keyboard warriors. So it was very much, you can't predict what anyone's going to do or say, or any situation's going to be like. All you can do is control how you respond.
I love that, because that is so flipping
So
important.
true.
It's so important. The
true.
only thing you can control is you, right? And the only thing you can control is, sometimes you can't even control yourself.
Sometimes you can't. Sometimes even controlling you is hard.
Yeah.
So.
And it takes a lot of practice. It takes a lot of, it takes a whole load of awareness, right?
Yeah.
And self-awareness, I think, is a huge thing. So within So within, so forget the show now, right? You've come off the show, you've gone on to, you ended up getting a deal.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Do you want to talk a little bit about that, how that kind of came around, and what's something I want to understand, right? So for all of the budding influencers out there, right? For you to be able to gain a deal as big as yours,
Yeah.
what pressure did that have on your mental? Did you feel any pressure, or
yeah.
like what was your feelings towards?
I think
First of all, say what the deal was.
So I did two. The main deal was that I signed a contract with L'Oreal, which was for makeup stuff, which I really appreciated because it was not just the social media aspect. I was on like their website and in stores and stuff. So, and L'Oreal is a brand I'd been working with for years, so it was nice that I could go back and work with them. I then did a edit with Shein, which was, well, by the time it was actually done and curated, it was the following year. Not even a year later, but it was the following year by the time it actually was finalised, put together and then out. And then at the time, I also signed with Elite Modelling Agency, which was my all-time biggest goal, which the irony of that I'm not with them anymore is funny, but all-time biggest goal. But
I'm going to touch on that.
Yeah. So it added a lot of pressure because I felt like, especially as a black girl, it was like, oh, okay, you've got so much mixed reviews, but regardless of that, in your personal well-being and in your personal life and your friendships and your relationships and your family, this is like the biggest thing ever. Forget letting down the public, don't let them down. Like, you've come this far, you've done so much, you've worked before the show and now after. Like, don't just sit back and be like, oh, yeah, I'm signed to Elite, I don't need to do anything. No. Don't let them down by slacking and forgetting where you came from. So actually the pressure came more from my intimate, personal relationships than anything to do with the public. Then the public came after, where I was like, okay, this has been announced now, can't slip up.
Yeah.
So
with, you said that the pressures of your internal circle, what was that like?
It was never like a direct, don't let us down, Jay. It was like do you know what? It's really mad. When so many people tell you that they're really proud, you almost feel like, oh, I can't take that pride away. Like, I need you to continue to be proud of me. So it was more like oh my God, like, I really did this and I really signed this and people have known I wanted to do this for years. Jay, don't let these people down. Like, don't do something stupid and mess it up. Like, concentrate, work, do what you've got to do to keep just progressing. So it was more that, and it was like, no one ever came to me like, don't let me down, you can't do this. It was more like, I'm so proud and you've done so much. And I was like, oh God, no, I have, but I have to keep going now.
So is that the story that you told yourself?
Yeah. Yeah, which is why I said on the mental health side of things, it was a very turbulent up and down, some good, some bad, until you get to a point of like, you really have to take yourself out of it entirely and put yourself here and be like, okay, me as an individual, and unpick yourself.
So you had all of those pressures, and then you ended up leaving Elite.
Yeah, so to be fair, it wasn't, so Elite has signed Kendall Jenner.
Nice.
And big people like that. And sometimes with big agencies, when they have big names like that, anyone that is new or quote unquote smaller just doesn't get the quote unquote attention that is needed to help
support.
push them. Yeah. And it's no fault of their own. They have Kendall Jenner. Like, I would be jumping to do stuff for Kendall Jenner more, but it just means that there's a lot of people that, and I had this conversation with people that were signed to them that are in part of massive agencies like Elite and like Storm, that are like, oh, it's great, but they don't really give you much because it goes to all the known people already. Cool. So it was more just that it wasn't suited to me, more so than anything. But I still have such a good relationship with them. There's still information that gets sent from them to me and stuff, like in terms of events and stuff. But yeah, in terms of the agency, it wasn't the right agency for me at the time. Who knows? Maybe in a couple of years I might be back with them. Yeah. But that was like my dream at the time.
So, okay, so when you then, I want to talk a bit about the pressure that the pressure that ended up coming from being signed to them with your internal group and the stories you told yourself, right? To then not to then leaving that relationship with Elite, how did you feel leaving the relationship with Elite?
On like a personal, just me level, I was heartbroken, but also a little bit relieved, because I was like, I really need to be with an agency that's actually gonna help my career, not just the name. Like, I actually need you to do something for me, not months of silence. Because I was with them for just under a year, absolutely nothing with them. In terms of the people around me, it was like, oh, now I have to break the news that I'm not with them. That is like, oh, why'd you have to do that now? So that was like a sad letdown moment. But thankfully, I've got the best people around me that it wasn't the biggest blow I thought it was going to be.
So what story did you tell yourself at the point of needing to tell your family and friends that you're now not signed to them? What was the story that you told yourself? Like, what was the assumptions that you was making, if you can remember, on how they would react to it?
I thought I was gonna get a lot of oh, it's okay, like, it's not the end of the world, you'll find someone else. But what I thought I'd get a lot of, which I kind of did, but not as much as I thought, was a lot of, oh, why? And why? The tone of it that I feared was that it was going to come from a place of like, oh, well, that sucks. And I didn't want that sucks. I knew, like, my parents would just be like, oh, well, that's not good, but it's fine, keep it moving. But yeah, I in my head was like, oh, I think I'm going to get a lot of like frowns and, oh man,
the pity.
A lot of pity.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh God, I already feel crappy with myself. Thankfully, it wasn't as bad as I thought.
Yeah.
Thankfully, it was okay. It was more a lot of like, once I explained to many people like, oh, they just didn't do what I wanted and they just didn't do much. It was like, okay, well, forget that then. Go somewhere where you can get work.
The reason why I asked you that is because I had my salon, obviously.
Yeah.
And when I left the salon, it was that feeling.
Yeah.
It was the feeling of, I spent so much time and so much money in building this salon, and everyone was like, oh, wow, like, Aaliyah's got a shop, Aaliyah's got this, Aaliyah's got that. Like, all of my family and friends, like, wow, like, what? You got a whole salon? What? 2 stories? What? And I'm like, yeah, like, to me, it was the natural progression, right? And yes, it took a lot of time, and yes, it took a lot of effort to kind of get there and get things up and running. And then when I decided to leave, it was like, oh, that the
I think I remember that conversation we had.
Yeah, because it was around the same time, and I honestly felt very much like, how dare you even have an opinion when you're miserable in your job?
Yep, I hear you.
And that was a realization that I had to come to.
Yeah.
That me telling them that I'm leaving the salon and I'm leaving something that I've worked on because I don't want it anymore.
Yep.
Not because it failed.
Yep.
And because people will turn around and be like, well, it probably didn't work out, or it probably was difficult and it probably cost too much money, or whatever it may be. Those kinds of reactions I didn't want to have, and those kinds of feelings and thoughts from other people, I just didn't want around me. So I refrained from saying it for a long time. And then also, what I also done was, I actually lied to a lot of people about why I left it.
Did you?
Yeah, I did, because I didn't.
I understand that though.
I didn't want the pity.
Yeah.
So I didn't want people to be like, oh, like, so what are you gonna do now? Like, brother, don't look at me like, say I'm mad for leaving something that I don't want to do anymore. Like, the reason for me to leave the salon was purely my relationship with my business partner just completely broke down.
Yeah.
Right? And I didn't enjoy having a salon anymore.
Yeah.
And being there. Like, from the time that I don't enjoy something anymore, trust me,
Gotta keep it moving.
I'm out.
Gotta get out of here, man.
Like,
Keep it moving. It's true.
because why am I going to be miserable to show face?
Yeah.
Why am I going to be miserable and not... So, like, for you, why are you going to stay into a deal knowing that you're not gaining anything and it's not building your career in any kind of way for the sake of the name? No. It doesn't matter what it looks like to, like,
Yeah.
the masses. that's your business, because you're probably upset in your job.
Yep.
And you're still broke at the end of the month.
Oh, 100%.
Do you know?
Sometimes misery loves company, though.
Oh, it always loves company.
Misery loves company. So if they're miserable, they're like, oh, yes, like, she's sad now as well. Let me bring her in.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Doesn't work like that. I've been sad for 24 hours, not 24 years. It's very different.
Very, very
different. No, it's true.
So, okay, so I want to ask you a bit about your next steps, where you're going, what you're doing, what we looking for when we see Jourdan. What we're going to see in the next few years?
So, oh God, okay, where do I start? Okay, so something I've been doing already for a while, a few things, but one of the main things that I've been doing for actually 2 and a bit years now is a girl talk series that I do on YouTube and have been doing. I've neglected it a little bit, won't lie, been unexplainably busy, honestly. Yeah. But yeah, I do a girl talk series, and the whole point of it is like the rawest, open. I'll wait for a second. You good?
So our cameraman decided to
drop the camera.
Drop the whole camera on us.
The whole camera for pure bands that has to stay in. For the bands, for the bloopers. Yeah, but do Girl Talk series, and they are very much uncut, raw, say it as it is, but educational. I'm learning, you're learning videos about all things women mainly, and I mean from sex to body odors to losing your virginity to your first menstrual cycle to different types of sanitary pads, tampons, diva, like everything you can possibly imagine, to after sex care, before sex care, during sex, like everything that you would be terrified to ask your friends or your parents that you would secretly Google, I do videos on. And I love it because I've learned so much, but also the target audience, or the audience that I'd say interact the most, are literally as young as like 11. Some even younger girls that are like, oh my God, I really wanted to ask my mum about that. Now I've got this video of the correct way to do something as simple as wipe. You'd be so surprised how the simple things and the basic hygiene things are not spoken about enough. Or taught. And I think because a lot of people just think, oh, it's common sense. It's actually not. No. It is definitely things you are taught and have to learn. So I do that. I'm currently writing something. I'll say something instead of saying what it is, just in case. But I'm currently writing something because in my young 10 to 27 years of life, I have been through some heartaches and some heartbreaks and some treacheries. So I thought, I'm going to put it on paper, because why not? And first of all, traumatizing, to actually read some of the stuff. It has been so healing and therapeutic for me to look at patterns of behavior within myself that I'm like, aha, okay, girl, that's what happened. That's your fault. Like, I really have been able to take a look at myself and be like, made that mistake 5 times, didn't you? Let's not do it a 6th and 7th, and then you won't get heartbroken again, will you? And it's also allowed me to realise that it sounds crazy, but also you probably are going to do it again, because it's in your nature, and the more you grow, the more you're going to stop yourself from doing it. Like, it's very, very eye-opening for myself, but also so stupidly relatable. There's bits of it that I've read to like my aunt and stuff, and it's full of like funny bits and laughter, but also like really sad and like real, you know, like my relationship, for example. I won't go too deep now because we'll be here for 10 days with like my biological father. Oh, terrible. But to unpack it and write it down, it's actually shocking how many people can relate and be like, even if it's not their dad, I've had a relationship with a family member like that. Oh my God, same. I can relate to that. And yeah, I thought I'd put it on paper. 1, to laugh at myself, because who doesn't love a little bit of self-sabotage?
Banter.
And 2, and bands. And 2, just to, relate to people and be like, you're actually not alone, and not every book about anything romance has to be made up and, oh my God, it ended so great. No, this is the raw roller coaster ride. The next point is getting the hell out of this country. Okay, moving, but COVID.
COVID done a lot.
COVID it's even stopped the visa process, which
Oh,
is
has it?
why I haven't gone. Yeah. It's made the visa process 75 times harder. You've got like extra categories of proof you've got to send over, which is very hard because for the work I do, people in America can just do it. So now to qualify for it is not the same. And what's more annoying is that I already had one, just needed to renew it. Pandemic hit, no one was working in the passport offices, so couldn't get it renewed. So now I have to actually reapply. So it's all a bit of a mess, but that eventually will finally come to fruition and I will be gone. And yeah, I started something in lockdown in 2020, business-wise. Seeing where that takes me, it was skin and cosmetics related. Wasn't the right time, had everything done, samples made, it wasn't the right time for me to launch it. I'm hoping that time will be probably next year in terms of where I'm at in my life and how I think it will progress.
Yeah.
So hopefully that will be next year. It's all ready and waiting, just needs to click go.
Oh, very exciting.
Very exciting.
Very exciting times.
It's a few things.
Yeah. Very, very exciting times. Okay, cool. So I want to just very quickly talk about the fact that you're writing something.
Yeah. Terrifying.
You're writing something which is going to be about your heartbreaks and all of the things. And you touched on the relationship with your dad.
Yeah.
Now, I have a level of understanding when it comes to turmoil within family, right?
Yeah.
So what would you say is a pattern through your writing have you noticed that has come from your childhood or come from something of your childhood? Like, could you...
There is a level of self-sabotage that I will do within relationships, like romantic relationships, as a protective mechanism, because the first love I should have had other than my mum, which should have been my dad, let me down from as young as I can remember in many different ways. And by the age of 20, which is the last time we ever said one word to each other, so 7 years ago, I was a professional at learning how to deal with not being wanted or accepted or loved in the way that I would want by the person who's meant to unconditionally love me. You're my dad, you're meant to. Like, it should be instinctive. Like, how is this not normal for you to be like, come here, my child? Instead, you're like, go away. So I think because I became used to that from a very young age as a protective mechanism, I will instantly sometimes assume the worst in my partner before I even give them the chance to prove me wrong. I'm like, no. And it's almost like I seek the, I knew it. And when it happens, I'm like, all right, well, I might as well leave then, because it's what I've been taught to do. Same thing happened with my dad. I was like, oh, well, you've proven to me the years that I've felt like you've not wanted me, you've very much now verbally said it, let me just dip. So there's a level of self-sabotage that happens in a protective way, and I'm still really young, but I'm old enough to be aware of it, that I am proactively trying to work on not doing that. So instead of living in the, oh my God, you're gonna let me down, live in the, this is great right now.
So what give me a few of the things that you would do to help yourself come out of that self-sabotaging. Like, are you using any techniques? Are you like, are you reading anything? What are you doing?
Hang on. Oh, should I say it while he's doing that?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I thought we needed that. I'm so sorry.
We got 3 cameras
Oh,
set
yeah,
up,
that's
honey.
true. It's actually true. Sorry, I thought that one was here and that one was on you. Hi.
If you're enjoying this podcast so far, this is only going to annoy you if you're a hater. Click subscribe, click follow, and drop a quick comment. And if you've done all of those already, then send me a 5-star review, because honestly, it's the only way we survive on the internet. Thank you.
First technique is something that I say a lot that I've tried to no longer say is when someone says to me, I'm going to do this, I would very quickly be like, I hope so. And instead I'm like, okay. And let them do it, because the hope so comes with an underlying tone of, you're going to let me down, but we'll see. instead of even putting that "you're gonna let me down but we'll see" energy out, I'm like, do you know what? Swallow that. Don't breathe life into that and let them do what they're gonna do. If it doesn't happen at the time, address it then, but let them prove that they can, because then you're probably not gonna have to address anything. I'm very quick to be like, yeah, we'll see. We'll see, and I hope so. Ooh, love those phrases. Got to stop doing them, because it also puts doubt into whoever you're in a relationship with mind as well, of like, you don't actually think I'm going to do it. And it's like, well, if you don't, to be fair to them, it's like, well, if you don't think I'm going to do it, what's the point anyway? So that's an active thing that I'm trying to stop doing, is like we'll see. I'm just like, okay, yeah. Okay, sure. Let's do that. So that's one. Another one is, if I have chosen to forgive a situation, even if it's as small as you forgot to call me, let it go. I can't say I've dropped it and not actively drop it. Now what I will do is be like, I haven't dropped it yet, and I'm not actually ready to let go of it yet, because I still feel this emotion towards it. But once I am, I promise you, it will never be spoken about again, and I will not speak about it again. Whereas before, I'm talking about that for 10 years. My poor exes, if they call me now, I'll be like, remember when you did this though? Remember when you said that you weren't going to do this and you did it? Can't do that anymore. So that's like another thing as well that I'm actively trying to do, where I'm like, verbally communicate and be like, I still feel like this, so therefore I might still behave in a particular way on that subject.
Do you know what? That communication right there, key.
Deep.
Major key.
Major key.
Major key.
Yeah.
Because that level of self-awareness allows the other person the opportunity. Whereas if you don't have the self-awareness to even say, do you know what, right now, I'm not there yet.
Yeah.
Give me a moment.
Yeah.
If they decide to then react, that's your goddamn business.
That's your business, because as I told you.
Because I done told you I'm not ready yet.
Plain and simple, yeah.
And that, do you know, a lot, like, I'm not gonna say a lot of women or men do this. I think everybody that has an emotion towards something generally feels the sense of, my emotion is the most important emotion.
Yeah, of course.
Therefore, you should just know how I feel.
Yeah.
You should just accept how I feel.
Yep.
And when the other person, like, directly looking at you, you haven't verbalized what that feeling actually is.
They can't act a particular way then.
Right. So that is major key.
Yeah.
So
That's my two main, I'd say, currently, from how much I've written, things that I've taken away, where I'm like, oh, to be fair, I never told them. And then I'm like, oh, I never told them that though. And I'm like, okay, I see.
So what about the underlying, yeah, but you should have known?
I think everyone has that underlying, yeah, but you should have known. Even when I've read it back and looked at some of, like, my ex's behaviours, I'm like, you probably assumed. Like, I've even gone as far as to be like, even with my dad, I've gone as far as to be like, my dad probably sometimes thinks, how could you not know that upset me? And I'm like, you never said, you just cut me off. Like, I've had to also be like, you've also done that. And there's certain things where I'll say you should have known, in terms of, if I've told you before, once, twice, 3 times, when I'm upset, this is how I respond. If I automatically respond, I'd like to think that by now you've listened to me enough that you know that means I'm upset. If I say to you, if you've really pissed me off and I don't talk to you, I just won't reply to your messages for a couple of hours. If I don't reply, you know that you've pissed me. Like, I've told you, but it has to start with, I've actually told you before.
Right.
So then the whole aspect of you should know can come into it, because it's like, I've actually told you, these are my behaviours. Surely you see the pattern now. But yeah, in general, I think I still will sometimes do the you should know. Every human being does it, because it's just like, especially people that have been around you, you're like, how do you not know me well enough? How do you not know? But especially if you're someone that does know. Like, if you're the person that can see it for them, and you're like, I can tell by your body language, blah, 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 blah. It's more frustrating when they can't do the same for you. But I'm learning to do more verbal, raw, as upset as it makes you, communication to eradicate the assumptions.
So what if... So the idea of you should have known, right? I like that makes a lot of sense. If I've told you in the past, I now have the scope to say you should have known, right? But what if, now bear in mind I'm just being devil's advocate here, because I'm not gonna like, I'm not the one to be like, no, I'm so self-aware that I don't I don't turn around and say, but you should have known.
It's only now I'm doing that. I've never done that before.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's like, what if that person just doesn't understand? And what if the way you communicated it wasn't the way that they understood? Therefore, you can do it 20 million times.
They're just not hearing you. So two things.
So whose fault is that?
Honestly, theirs. And let me explain why. I'll explain why. So two things. One, I think there are certain things that you shouldn't have to explain. They should just be common knowledge that you should know you're crossing the line. Like cheating.
However,
common sense.
Common sense is not common.
It's not, but everyone, okay, I just pin it as this. If there are things that you have to keep and hide from your partner, you know it's a problem. So therefore you should know it's going to cause an issue, because if I say to you, why didn't you tell me? And your response is because you're going to get upset. Well, then you know I'm going to be upset. Then you know. On the topic of they're not hearing it, the reason I say it's their fault is because it's their job to say to you, I don't understand what you're saying.
Uh-huh.
I don't actually, instead of being like, yeah. No, tell me you don't get it, so I can say to you, well, how can I say it so you hear me then?
Yeah.
Like, or if it's really that they're not getting it, unfortunately, you have to be the person to be like, how else can I word this so that you hear me? So like, in my most recent relationship, how I realised that they prefer to be communicated was it written down. So I would write it down, send it, let them read it, and then we talk about it, because you only seem to hear me when it's written in words.
Right.
When I say it, you're zoned out. So let me write it. And I'll cuss, I'll write it how I'm gonna listen. And you done this and this and this. I'm writing it how I'm speaking. But for whatever reason, that's just how they digested information.
Yeah.
So it worked better. Whereas me, you can tell me. I'll hear you if you say it to me. I'm not reading nothing. Tell me.
Do you feel, so this is a little bit, it's not random, it's on topic, but I find it so much easier to communicate in writing. Like if I write something, my words are powerful. They lick you. They're like, yes,
Powerful.
This makes so much sense. It's laid out like this.
Yep.
Like the structure to my writing, I might have a whole load of spelling mistakes, but the structure to
No,
that
man,
writing,
it's gonna make some sense. Yeah,
makes so much sense. But yeah, a lot of people are like, oh, it's like for men,
because
right?
it's essays.
For men, oh, here we go with the essay.
Yeah. So that.
And I'm like, no, this is just the way I communicate. So I need to provide
I had
the
that.
way that I communicate.
I had that, right? And I had to, because we're very similar. So I had that, and I had to be like, in the middle of them being like, oh, I'd be like, stop. If you're going to react as though what I'm about to say is a burden, don't ask me how I feel anymore. No, because don't ask me how I feel anymore.
Yeah.
Because if every time I'm going to tell you how I feel, you're going to make me out to seem like I'm burdening you and you're moaning, stop asking me how I feel. You should know. And then if you don't know, ask me and listen. Or just
And
whenever going to speak.
just be open enough to understand.
Yeah.
Right?
Cut that. Like, I hate that feeling of like, oh, if you're going to roll your eyes, I'm never going to speak to you anymore, and I'm going to just speak to someone else, and then you're going to be vexed because I'm speaking to somebody else about it, and it should be you. Yeah. So I've had to start doing the whole, stop rolling your eyes, you asked me how I felt, let me tell you. Listen, or don't ask me and deal with me being in silence in the house. Which one? And then what? Everyone's just vexed. Like, oh, it's.
Do you know what?
hard.
I was actually saying the other day, that's like, and this is with business, this is with relationships, this is just with humans, right? Silence can be such a positive thing, but also such a negative thing.
Yeah.
Because silence breeds stories.
Yep.
And when you start creating those stories in your head, you react on the stories that you've made up in your head. But the silence allowed you to have that time to make up stories. And then, so the one thing that I always say, like with any of my team members, with my partner, with my family, with anything, like if I don't speak to you, try know, and I probably haven't said this to you, but I'm going to let you know from now, Dwayne. If I don't say something, it's because I'm making up stories in my head. And if there's a situation that's happened that hasn't been addressed,
Yeah.
I'm making up stories in my head. That's not a bad thing.
No.
But it's also not a good thing.
No.
Right? So there has to be a level of awareness again on both parts, or also just transparency, right? So transparency from the jump. This is how I am. This is how I operate. I'm going to let you know from now that if there's a bit of silence, then it might not be good. If they,
help me out of
after
it.
Like after a situation.
Yeah.
I'm still learning. I'm still on the journey of trying to get myself out of it. But I'm going to let you know from transparency. If I'm silent after a situation, then break the ice, try to talk to me to support me to come out of it.
Yeah.
Now, that's not everybody's responsibility. It's my responsibility as well as it is the person in front of me. So as well as it's my team members, as well as it's my friends, my family, my partner, whatever. It's their responsibility as well as it is mine.
Yeah.
But it's having that transparency, which I think is the self-awareness from the beginning. Right?
It's self-awareness, but even if you're not self-aware, even just saying it just because you know, like you just said to me, like even if you're not self-aware, like just having this conversation, if you went back and you were like, okay, so I think we need, just even saying it is something.
But that is self-awareness.
Maybe then, yeah.
Because like if somebody doesn't actually say, do you know what, I'm actually quite self-aware, you might not even realise that you do things that is very self-aware.
Maybe, yeah.
And is allowing yourself the credit to say, do you know what, actually, I do know myself, or...
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, because what you just said is like not giving yourself the credit. Credit needs to be given when it's due, right? And if you can say anything about the way that you are, or what you think you like and what you think you don't like, that is self-awareness. That is your step forward into self-awareness. I just urge that within business, within relationships, because at the end of the day, business is relationships, right? Being self-aware and understanding yourself, but working on yourself to understand yourself is vital.
Sometimes it takes a massive thing to happen though.
Yeah.
It didn't, I mean, I think because of the people I've had around me, it's allowed me to start being self-aware from early, but not fully. I'm still not fully, I'm still learning. But it took a horrible situation for me to write, and in that I then really delved into it.
Right.
And that's only in the last couple months. Like really, really delved into it. It took that for me to actually do it.
Can I ask what that was?
Heartbroken, and madly disrespected, to the point where I was like, rah, you don't allow this with many people. Why have you allowed it in this situation? Couldn't figure it out, so I had to write it down. And then when I wrote it down, I was like, I wonder if I've done that any other time. Sometimes I had, sometimes I hadn't. But in general, I was like, why have I blindly allowed such a huge violation to happen to me? And then it was even as deeply as like, for you're like, you know, sometimes you actually have to be like, nah, like, and something that I don't do very often is actually look at myself and be like, no, but you do really well, Jay. Like, I'm grateful I've got people around me that'll do it, but I don't do it for myself very often. And in that situation, I had to actually be like, are you right? You done that to me. Do you know what I do for you? And you're going to do blatantly disrespect me? Oh, man, screw you. And it really took me to a place of like, nah, what do you actually do? Like, no, think of all the things you actually do. And then that's when I had to do it. And then off the back of that, I had to be like, all right, so this is what you do, but you also need to be aware of the things that you do wrong. And that's really what happened. Like, I was wildly disrespected. Bro, mad.
Was that a friend, a family member?
No, I was in a relationship. It wasn't cheating because for me personally, I can't come back. Like, you're touching someone else, I'm dipping. But the disrespect was at the line, like just over the, like, you know when you're like, this is the line of I'm leaving. It was on the line, and I was like, oh, this is very, very mad, because it's in my opinion, it wasn't enough to end it, but it also was. Right. And it was the difference of, if this isn't communicated properly as to where the real issue lies, and even the smallest screw up happens again, it's that it was literally like a seesaw of, oh, you are living this one down for a minute. You're living this one down for a minute. If I just wake up at 4 a.m. and I want to cuss you, you're holding the cussing. But also, if I'm like, do you know what? I'm dipping. I'm also dipping. It was very, this could make or break. And it left me in the position of deciding, do I want to make or break this relationship? And it was like, I'm still in the mindset of, do I want to make or break it? Like, I'm leaning more towards make, but breaks very much in my head. Because it's like, you really have to find within yourself that trust and belief of, are you going to do this to me again? And that is like, that's where the self-awareness comes in, that I have to openly communicate, like, more than ever. And if I wake up one morning and I'm just vexed, I have to call and be like, look, I've woken up vexed because I just woke up and was reminded of what you did. So I'm just going to talk through it with you one more time. And you're going to have to deal with me talking about it for the 18th time today because something's happened and it's triggered me. Might wake up and be like, oh, I've actually forgotten about it. I literally, like, word vomit. I have to constantly be like...
To get out your system.
Get it out my system.
So bring in all of this energy and all of these feelings and all of these situations that happen, like, in your life, right? How do you think they play a part in your business and, like, your mental state for you to be able to wake up in the morning and do what you need to do? Because something life happens to all of us.
Constantly.
Right? Shit happens.
Yeah.
People disrespect us, but we get cheated on. We hurt ourselves. Our mental health is kind of dips. Our physical health dips. We have deaths in the family, like, or deaths around us, like, whatever it is. Life happens. So when life happens, how do you? Because you're in the public eye. So how do you center yourself and show up?
I think it helps you deal with rejection. I think part and parcel of business is dealing with people that are going to say no because it's going to happen. Things will fail, things will succeed. Like learning how to handle the rejection and spinning it to find a better solution. It helps with the mindset of being really honest with yourself and not living in like a fairy tale land of like, oh, everything's fine. No, everything's fine, but this did go wrong, so I've got to try and fix this. Like the harsh realities of it. So it helps with the business idea and the whole idea of being an entrepreneur, that like the patience of it, things take time. Nothing's going to happen overnight, but also something can. It's like the idea of I'm going to move forward with the everything's going to go to the best of its place and best of the position and best of its ability, but I'm prepared for the worst of it too. Not how I'm going to live it, but I'm prepared for the worst of it. It's like that mentality of gives you a lot more thicker skin. It's helped me with the idea of like if I do a girl talk video and it got 2 million views last year, but the ones I'm uploading now are on 10k views, I'm like, oh, it's okay, 10,000 people have watched it though. It might not be 2 million, but it's 10,000, it might be 2 million in a year. Like that mentality of I've prepared for the worst of it, but there's actually something good in it. It still helped someone. So those are like the key things that I would say really help.
Well, Jourdan.
That's it?
Girl.
This is a wrap.
Thank you so much for coming in and speaking to me.
Thank you for having me.
And just being open and honest, right? I'm sure it's not the last time I'm going to see you here.
Oh, we've got so much to say. We can do about 75 of these.
I know, right? So, yeah, I just want to say a massive thank you, and I commend everything that you're doing. And I'm really, really excited for what is about to happen for you.
And you'll be one of the first to know as well, which is very exciting.
I know. I mean,
very excited.
So yeah, honestly, that's it. We're just going to wrap it up here, and we are going to follow your journey even more.
Amazing.
And we are going to showcase and shed a light on all of the amazing things that you're doing, because I don't think it's recognised enough. Even though you're in the limelight, I still don't feel like it's recognised enough of the entrepreneur that you are. And that's the person that I want to bring out.
Love that for me, and I love that for you, and thank you.
Thank you.
And I love you. Thank you for having me.
Love you so much. Thank you so much.
You was just listening to the Promisingpreneur podcast. I am Aahliyah Amerat, and thank you so much for listening all the way through. Don't forget to click subscribe and share to at least one person, because that's the only thing that's going to fuel us to carry on.